What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to be prepping the EG for the new transmission. So y'all remember last week, Travis and I went and took out the transmission from that Del Sol SI. Super happy to have found that, and oh my God, you guys, I am so excited to put this thing in the car. I really feel that it is going to just make this car in this form with the D series a totally new thing. Out on track, oh my God, being able to row through second and third, I can totally picture it, and I know it would be awesome. Hopefully the transmission just works. I really hope. That would be so disappointing to do all this work and then this transmission, the one I picked up, doesn't work. Oh, that would really suck. But it's a possibility, man. Failure is still an option. But I have decided the CX transmission would not be going back in this car. I would continue the search for a Y8 or another SI transmission. It's really the same thing. So anyway, I'm gonna be making some room in the engine bay so that I have some room to work with. So let's get started. Here is the all familiar bay to everybody. Pretty much what I'm gonna be doing is taking out the stock airbox, removing the tubing. Distributor may or may not come out. I don't think it's quite necessary. And then also possibly the radiator. But I need to be working down in here, so I need to just make sure that I have some room. Obviously, you guys see this. I had broke off the bleeder hose valve on another piece, and so I actually went and picked one up in the junkyard before. But so that eliminated a step for me. I don't have to drain the coolant. I will still have to drain the engine oil because I'm going to be doing the rear main seal, and also, of course, the transmission fluid. Off. Out. Disconnected, out of the way. Out. And with everything disconnected, out. Hole achieved. I took out radiator, lower radiator hose, the upper hose, the air box, the little piece extending up, of course the reserve tank for the radiator, and just made myself some nice working space because you see we got to get to these lower mount bolts here at some point, and then of course the hard line here for the clutch. So we'll have to move that out of the way. So you see, I just made myself some room. I don't think it's totally necessary that you have to do that, but I really wanted to, just to, again, give myself the room. And here are all the parts that I took out. Oh, including the broom. Took out the broom. That was like 20 horsepower. So what I'm gonna be doing next, now that all that's out of the way, is jacking the car up and go ahead and start draining the transmission fluid that's currently in there and start on the axles. This is the very first time, actually the second time, I guess you could count it, that I'm gonna be taking a transmission out. I know that some of you may have already done this, maybe all of you have already done this, who knows? But I know there are people who watch this channel who have not done this work before. And so for them, I'm gonna make this a more of a step-by-step kind of process. Hopefully you all get something out of it. But anyway, starting on the passenger side of the car, we're gonna be working with the axle nut here and disassembling all this. But first, you can see the transmission in there from the passenger side. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the drain bolt, and then we'll go ahead and drain the old transmission fluid right now. And this is the passenger side of the car. Transmission, this bolt right here that has the 3/8 socket ready for it, that's the drain bolt. We're gonna go ahead and loosen that and then put our pan under here and get the old fluid out. Pan under the car, 3/8 ratchet. It just goes ahead and fits snug into the bolt. And son of a bitch. This is gonna be one of those. plan B. I'm gonna leave that thing on. If you were just changing out the fluid in yours, you would definitely need to go ahead and break that. An impact with a 3/8 head on it would definitely do it. I don't have that, mine's a half drive, and I'm putting all my force. I even put my foot up on the LCA and I'm pulling that thing and it wouldn't do it, man. Thankfully for me in this situation, it's okay. It's gonna add a little bit more weight when I go ahead and drop it, so that sucks. But I already tried to loosen the bolt on the new one and it loosened perfectly. So I was like, oh, thank you, God. So anyway, I would recommend go ahead and draining that fluid, but in this case, I am not. Do as I say, not as I do. The next step would be go ahead and take off this axle nut. This one right here doesn't look like it's pinched in too much. See, this part right here is actually a lock where the axle stud comes out. This metal is meant to be bent into that. And this one already kind of looks like it's not in there that great. So I'm gonna go ahead and blast it with the impact gun. Now, this is highly recommended to loosen these bolts. You can do it without, but it's gonna take a lot of leverage and probably someone holding the brakes. But so this is an impact gun with a 32mm socket. We're gonna go ahead and blast that guy off. On this one, try to cover your ears, kids. Damn, that's so loud. And it didn't do it yet. Round 2. Holy crap, that was something. Finally got it. And it's finally, whew, come off. And with one person, this is a little tougher. And that's by no means a drag on Trav. Trav is coming tomorrow, guys, so chill the F out. But I had to use my brakes. So I piled some weights and tiles on it so it could hold the brakes. My wife isn't home right now, so I've got no one to help me at the minute. Thankfully, that's finally off. If yours gets stuck like mine, man, just have someone hit the brakes or pile some weight on the brake. With the axle nut off, we go ahead and we gotta remove a little pin on the bottom of the nut here. It's called a cotter pin. We're gonna take our needle nose pliers and go ahead and take this guy out so that we can go ahead and remove the nut then. Now this next bit may seem a little crazy, but it's the way to do it. There are 2 different ways. We need to go ahead and separate the LCA from the lower ball joint here that's connecting this whole assembly from the bottom. And like I said, there are 2 ways. One of them is with like a pickle fork, I think they call it. You actually stick it in between the 2 and kind of mess with it and separate it. The other way, good old trusty hammer. Jeremy Clarkson way. You just give it a good couple whacks. May take a minute, who knows, we'll see. And then it'll actually just poof, separate. Just gotta give this thing a whack along the lower part of it here and, you know, try not to damage it. Oh. Now that I'm deaf and it didn't move. Ball joint separator time. Essentially, you guys, I got it. It was a pain in the nuts, and I think that's just kind of what it is. I'm trying to get you a good angle here, sorry. You see, it is separated now. The lower joint is separated. You see, it is separated from the lower ball joint. And the pickle fork did work. I essentially used both methods, the hammer and the pickle fork. And the pickle fork, I just went in on one side, pounding the hammer in to where it was kind of wedging its way through. And then I tried the other side, pounding it, wedge its way through. And then I actually used the jack and jacked up the bottom a little bit. And it kind of put it a little closer to ride height. And then I did the pickle fork again and it broke free. So essentially what I'm trying to say is keep at it. It's easy to get discouraged doing this because it's like, God, it's not working and you don't see any progress, but then just bam, it'll just work. So try a bunch of different methods, try different angles, and keep at it, you'll get it. We're just gonna pull this hub away and the axle falls out, you see? Move my hand, here's the axle. So with this portion of the axle free, now we can go ahead and separate it from the trans. Now do not just pull on this shaft. That's one thing that I've been reading about a lot. They're like, you're gonna separate the CV joint in there. It's not going to just pull out. So what you need to do is either use like a crowbar or some sort of pry tool. I'm gonna use this little flathead and you actually stick it, let's see, maybe up in there in between that little joint, tap it in with a hammer, it will pop the axle out and then you pull it out by the main portion of the axle here, not the shaft. So the axle is out, but you remember how I didn't drain the fluid before? Well, yeah, be prepared for that. It just popped on out and then fluid started coming down if you don't drain it first. So go ahead and drain it first. So just gonna let that axle hang there like that. It's kind of just resting in between the fork and then down here, that just rests. And then now we're going to work on the other side. Now it's the same thing on the other side. Take the wheel off, cotter pin, nut on the bottom of the LCA, the lower ball joint. Go ahead and separate the ball joint, take the axle out. So I'm just gonna time lapse some of that. The gun, man, it got that nut off from the bottom there. Ugh, I love that thing. So I'm down here, I need to get to the axle, which is right up in there, and this exhaust pipe is kind of in my way. So I just want to let you know I'm going to be dropping this down pipe here, connects to there. I'm going to drop this whole piece. Kind of got to do that anyway to get better access at some of these bolts with the gun. Both axles are free. That one hanging there, one hanging there. There's the hole where the axle came out of from the driver's side. You see more of the fluid coming down. Now all I did on both sides was take the hammer and take a little flathead and I just put it up on in there between the axle and the tranny and then just tapped it in with the hammer, just kind of popped it free, then again pull from the big portion out. Pull from this portion out, and I was kind of twisting it as I pulled it out, and it came out real nice and easy. So the exhaust came down, it's over there. Everything's pretty much wrapped up axle-wise. Next thing to do, under the car, and there is the shift linkage. I'm gonna be taking that guy out now. Okay, update you guys. Shift linkage, stabilizer bar is dropped. So just so you know, you do have to drop your center console piece, and just like you're doing the shift boot install, but then this time you're actually pushing this down through. So I just got to get the exhaust out of the way and that will come down. The shift linkage is down. And I want to go ahead and point out here that I realize I may have done that the harder way, arguably. What you could do is disconnect the shift linkage from the transmission. So that involves removing this little pin. You see right here. This is the part that connects to the transmission. There's a little pin under in here that you have to remove. That's a real pain in the ass. And then you have to move the stabilizer bar here. What I'm gonna do now is start taking care of some of the wiring harness, and then we're gonna get to all the bolts. Things like the O2 sensor, this clutch hard line, the starter. Right there's a starter ground, and I guess it's a main power. Has gotta be removed. Various little pieces here that have to be removed. Vehicle speed sensor, that was the other one back in there. So I'm gonna get to those. Just wanted to give you an update of what I did. This is, I believe, the main ground that goes to the trans, sitting on top there. I'm not sure what this is. Oh, I think the reverse light or something like that. Right next to the starter, this little guy. Just disconnect that. When I said O2 earlier, I meant I just had to get mine off of this bracket. You don't necessarily have to disconnect it. Vehicle speed sensor, disconnected back there. And then from the starter, there is a ground, a big old wire that runs up to the battery. And then also this little guy that is connected into the starter piece. So all those connections are undone. Now to start doing some big bolts. I'm gonna be starting under the car here. And one of the first things I'm gonna go for are the clutch cover bolts. So right here, I believe this is supposed to be a 14. This one is a 12, back up in here. And then there are two 10s that look like they're kind of connected to the oil pan. So those are 10s, there's one on each side. Those gotta come out, 14, 12. And then I'm gonna start working on some rear bolts up here in the back. This big old mount specifically. Where is it? I believe this guy right up here. Big old bolt. I'll put a light on when I go to it, but that's the one I'll be getting. That right there is the flywheel cover, I guess it's called. That would make more sense, right? So two 10s, 14, and a 12. And then this is flywheel cover. And what I'm doing over here is just kind of labeling my bolts, just so I have them off on the side and I know what the hell goes to what. Pretty much now I'm gonna start going for the bigger bolts, the big bracket in the back holding the firewall to the transmission. Just a big mount. I think it's a 19 or a 17 is a big bolt up in there. And then I'm gonna start going for like the front, couple bolts down in here, and then the top ones. In between all that, I'm gonna be putting the jack underneath the engine, underneath the block, so that it can support it up. And then I can wiggle the transmission off, pull it to the ground. I'm not gonna be doing a whole lot of filming during this portion. I'll kind of just do some little clips and show you a bit of a wrap up. Really what I'm doing is what you saw in the last episode as well, when we took out that transmission. So that was in depth as well. Really, it's just the big bolts, you know? Okay guys, so now's a good time to show you. I actually went ahead and drained my oil and took out the oil filter because I'm gonna be doing the rear main seal as well. So the oil needs to go. The oil filter that sits right up in here is entirely in the way of this bolt that I'm trying to get to. So you already took the two big ones out back there. There's one more up here that I need to take out. And for the gun anyway, that oil filter was in the way. So just went ahead and drained it now. The other one is this one right here. It's just above the axle hole. And that's a 17. On top of the car, the starter's gotta come out as two bolts. Kinda hard to show you guys, sorry, but there are two bolts down in there. And then I'm gonna support the block with the jack, and we're gonna start on the big bolts here. So like I said, there's two 14s holding the starter in. I already took both bolts out, so there's the other one. And then the starter itself can come out. Awkward, very awkward angle. There's the starter. See it split? It's a good thing. Got all the bolts out, all the mounts are off, rear mount, passenger side mount, front passenger side mount, and then 4 bolts up top, and then 1 down here in the front, and it split by itself. I think I'm gonna set this camera up and try to wiggle the transmission off, see what happens. One more bolt somewhere. It's out. Sorry, I missed the clip. I went and stopped the camera because I thought it was caught on something, I don't know what. And it was caught on something, I think it was one of those little dowels. I just kept wiggling that thing and then boom, it dropped. I mean, it didn't totally drop. I I had some hand on it. It didn't just fall. But man, I'm proud of myself. I did it. But holy crap, I am winded. I've been doing this all day, man. This is, like I said, the second time I have done this, and the first time I have attempted it by myself. Progress. I'm super happy, man. It's awesome. So that's gonna conclude the episode for now. I know it may be a long one. We'll see how it goes in the edit, but I really appreciate y'all sticking around to watch. I am really, really excited to get this new transmission in tomorrow. With Trav's help, it's gonna be so much nicer, so cool, man. And I really, again, just hope the trans works and that this is just awesome. It's a lot of work, man, it really is, but it is rewarding. And especially learning something for the first time and going through and doing it, you know? It's really cool, man. I'm proud of myself. I believe I did everything right. If I didn't, I'm sure y'all let me know. But yeah, so new one going in tomorrow. Y'all see that in the following week's episode. So thank you so much for watching. See you next time.